So, welcome everyone to the first podcast of Sustainability is Sexy. Today, we are going to dive into the topic of fast fashion and how that affects and impacts the world and what's the cost of it. And we're going to be talking about this with Kendahl, my best friend. So, let's start this.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. To begin, I'm going to briefly explain what fast fashion is for those who don't know the term. Fast fashion is a way of making clothes quickly and cheaply to keep up with the latest trends. Big brands produce huge amount of clothing at low prices, encouraging people to buy more. However, this system often leads to poor working conditions for garment workers, a lot of waste, and significant environment damage. It's like a cycle of quickly buying, wearing, and discarding clothes, which can harm both people and the planet. When you hear about fast fashion, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
The first thing that comes to my mind is just keeping up with trends. You see, nowadays, especially with the internet, trends come and go so quickly that people buy things so fast and then they wear them a couple times and then they're on to the next thing.
Yeah, and I feel like we do that.
Yeah.
It's really hard not to be part of this system where
our generation, being on Instagram and TikTok, you're constantly seeing new things pop up and you're seeing all these people marketing it towards you, and it's very easy to hop on those trends.
Yeah. And also I was really shocked at the fact of the impact that it has on the environment.
Yeah.
When I'm buying, I don't think oh, this is probably gonna be on the waste and it's gonna end up in the ocean.
Yeah.
And that's really common.
Yeah, you don't think about all the negative side effects of you just having the coolest, newest, cutest thing.
Or you just see it on TikTok or somewhere and you're like, oh, I want that, I'm just gonna buy it.
Yeah.
So another thing that I've seen is and I got really shocked is so the United Nations climate change it was saying how fast fashion industry contributes to around 10% of global greenhouse emissions, which is more than aviation and shipping industries combined.
Wow.
This makes me feel so bad.
Yeah.
Because I think of a plane and all the emissions, gas emissions that it has, and how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always been told the worst that can be is a plane, and so it's crazy.
Yeah, that especially now our generation and the culture of the world right now is everyone's doing it. So yeah, with how things are going, that number is just going to keep going up if we don't start to make changes.
So what we're saying it's how our generation is the one who basically started all this fast fashion trend and keep buying clothes, but we don't realize that if we don't try to stop this, future generations are going to be the ones affected the most by this.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's important to think about future generations because with fast fashion, we're just thinking about right now. That's kind of the point of fast fashion is what do I want to do right now? So thinking to be more ways to be more sustainable for the future.
We don't think of the impact that we're having by just being on our phone and being oh, this is so nice, I'm gonna get it right now. And more so I did research and I saw how all this is started by Zara was the first company who started fast fashion.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was by a New York Times wrote an article about it, and they used the term fast fashion.
Oh.
So since then, it's been opening new stores and all using the same.
Yeah, now everywhere kind of markets as fast fashion.
Which I think is really crazy how from an article that helped even contribute oh, fast fashion, this is working, let's people's talking about us. But this also has not only an environmental impact, but a social impact.
Yes.
Because we don't notice, like, all these clothes are really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think about it, like, how are you getting cheap clothes? Like, there's gotta be a reason.
Mm-hmm.
This reason would be like underpaid workers or like in unsafe places, and
Yes.
also the countries where they're doing all this like labor job, they have like a lack of laws on that sector.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're facing more than just a waste
Yes.
of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than that.
Yeah, you have all these people that are working in unsafe conditions for too many hours and they're being underpaid. And in some places, there's even like people that are too young to be working.
Yeah.
And I think not enough people take that into consideration when they're buying things. Because a lot of people, like on these websites where you can order things from other countries, and they look at it and they're like, oh, that's just so cheap, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
But like if you're buying something for a couple dollars when normally it would be more expensive, you have to take into consideration, okay, so if a place is going to be making profits off of something, that means like the amount of labor that they paid for was very, very minimal.
Yeah. And more like it all comes from like the mindset that we have as shoppers. Like we need to change our mindset and like acknowledge where is all this coming from.
Yeah.
And people should like try to talk more about this because a lot of solutions could come from thrifting.
Yes.
And going to thrift stores and like buying secondhand, which is probably a really good alternative right now. But also, we're still going to thrift shops with the mindset of I want more clothes. I want to spend more. So like the mindset's still there. You're just choosing like a more sustainable option.
Yeah. And I think another thing that we can do is invest in higher quality stuff.
Yeah.
That'll last longer. And look at things where there's obviously trends that come in and out very quickly. So I think it's important to try to find, if you try to find your own style and you actually buy things that you like, not just because they're the most popular thing, then you're going to wear that for longer because that's something that you like. It's not going in and out of style. It's what you're choosing to wear. So if you invest in higher quality items that are things you really want, you'll get a lot more use out of it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's amazing. Like my parents or like my grandparents, they don't go shopping.
No.
And their clothes are like from like 20 years ago and they're still like really good quality.
Yeah. My mom, like she has this one dress that she just, like we went to a wedding last summer and everyone was complimenting her dress and someone asked her where she got it and she was like, I don't know. I got this dress like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And you don't see that with our generation right now. You don't see, like, we're not even very old, and yet we've gotten rid of clothes and stuff already. Where it's like when I talk to my mom or my grandparents, they hold on to the same clothes 20, 30 years.
Yeah, or like all this, like, I see like videos of like showing the outfit and where it's coming from when they're like, this is from my mom when she was like 16. And I'm like, wow, like we're probably not going to be able to do that.
No.
We're probably not going to be able to give our kids our clothes.
Yeah, because the quality of most of the clothes we're buying is not quality that's going to last 20 years.
And that kind of like comes with like tradition. It's like, I feel like the fashion industry is a really cool like sector and like it's really nice and really like good way to like express yourselves. But I'd rather express myself for longer than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question I have for you is, so we've been seeing like we're always on social media. Like we're always on TikTok. Before bed, we're scrolling. We have our phone time.
Yes.
But have you noticed like how influencers keep promoting to buy new clothes and like just to keep up on trends?
Yes, definitely. There's been like a huge push with that now, especially with TikTok Shop. now where things are being sold directly on TikTok. So as you're just scrolling on the app, then you see your favorite influencers that you watch every day, and now they're telling you like, oh, just click right here below and you can have this new sweater that I'm wearing right now. And then they give you a code to get it for cheaper, and there's all these different deals. So it's totally like promoting that fast fashion idea, and it's making it so accessible that it's getting easier and easier to participate in that.
Yeah, I have to say I was shocked because in Spain we don't have TikTok shop.
Yeah.
And I got it the other day because I changed like the settings of my TikTok, and I was like, I spent all day, probably like the next 3 days, instead of going on TikTok and watching videos, I was looking at clothes.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I'm tired. Like I put so much on the cart, and then I was like, I'm not getting any of this. And then I went back to my TikTok, and it was all people and like influencers promoting those clothes.
Yep.
So I couldn't stop myself on going back. Haven't bought anything, but it's so tempting.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. Is I hadn't really like, I had seen a lot of TikTok shop stuff pop up, but I hadn't bought anything. But then once I clicked into things, then I'm getting countless videos promoting that. So it pays attention to what you like, and with the different algorithm and stuff, it's like exactly the things that you want. So it's even more getting you to hop on this trend and want to buy it because it's in your face constantly.
Yeah. So I feel like it's starting to be like a really big problem, like by like seeing this, and even though we're trying to talk about this and like make people acknowledge like how bad it is what we're doing right now with like fast fashion, but the big people, the big ones, are the ones who have to start to change. And not by only putting like paper bags instead of plastic bags. Like there's more than that.
Yeah. And many of these big influencers, they're not going to stop promoting things like that because they're being paid to do that. That's a big part of how they're making their money.
Yeah.
Like they're not solely making their money off of your views. Like they're also making it off of like when you buy stuff from their shop and partners with different brands and stuff. So they're going to continue to promote that. I did actually see one influencer that said like, this is just your reminder that you don't need everything. And like just reminding people that like, yes, during this holiday season you're going to see lots of things telling you you need to get this and you need to get this, but you don't need everything.
Yeah. It's really sad. And like more for like what we were saying, like now that Christmas is coming, and like giving someone a sweater or something and knowing like that person's probably not going to have it for long. Like that gift, it's not going to last forever at all.
Yeah.
It is really sad. And I think we really need to like try to work on it, and like not only like us that we're just like making this podcast, like influencers, companies need to like actually make a change, and us as like consumers, we need to change our mindset.
Yeah.
And we need to be like we don't need anything.
Yeah.
I mean everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because really that change does have to start with the consumers. Because if there is like a business that does start to make higher quality things and the consumers aren't going for it, they're not going to continue that.
Yeah.
So we need to make that change. We need to stop buying the cheap stuff, and then that's when we can start to see the change in companies.
Yeah, companies are not going to stop producing clothes because they're getting good profit.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's always about money for them.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, just a quick note before we dive in the thrifting topic. We had a bit of a technical issue with our original recording, so this part of the podcast was re-recorded over a phone call. You might notice a slight change in sound quality, but we hope you still enjoy the conversation. Thank you for understanding and enjoy.
So the other topic I want to talk about is circular economy. I read this on an article that was titled "Slowing the Fast Fashion: An All-Around Perspective," and it was basically talking about a solution that was
So recycling, repairing, and reusing clothing, which is basically thrifting in my opinion at the end, like, and not only thrifting, because you can also do that by like giving your old clothes to a neighbor, to a cousin. But how do you think about like this, like try to like this solution, this mindset that people should like have now?
Yeah, I think thrifting is a great way to slow fast fashion, but you still, in that, you want to do it in moderation as well, because in the recycling and repairing clothing, there still is like effect on our planet and different things. So it's a way to help, but it doesn't like eliminate the problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you had mentioned earlier, like when you're thrifting, you're still going and buying more clothes. So if you're doing it in moderation, I think that's a great way to.
Yeah, I really agree, and I feel like it needs to be seen in like it needs to be like thrifting, like stores, like more accessible, like everywhere. Because I feel like now it's only like on big cities, or like it doesn't need to be a big city, but like moderate city where like people actually goes. I think it should be in like most of towns.
Yeah.
And it's really nice of like what I was saying, like giving your old clothes to like your cousin or your like neighbor. Like that's a really great way. Or like going to church and giving your clothes. I feel like those things are kind of starting to lose.
Yeah.
And we need to like still do that. And the same with like thrifting secondhand. They're really good quality.
Yeah.
Because most of them are also clothes they were like more expensive with better quality. They were reusing. So by looking at this, at some point, thrift stores are not going to be there just because we keep buying cheap clothes.
Yeah.
And those cheap clothes are not going to end in a thrift store.
Yes. Yeah. So we're losing, by contributing too much to fast fashion, we're losing that ability to even have thrift stores, because a lot of the things that you find in thrift stores currently are from longer ago, so they are that better quality. So we need to continue to buy and reuse the better quality things in order for that to be a sustainable option.
Yeah, and I'm sure now someone's gonna be like, well, but like you can also remake clothes by old clothes. But that's a new process that now we have to add. So like if we're using cheap clothes, we use it for like a short period, and then you throw it away, it's a waste, and they're gonna try to make new clothes with that waste. So it's a new process that we have to add to all this.
Yeah.
And like make it like longer, instead of only like just trying to buy better quality. Or if you're not, and if you can't like afford those, just reduce the amount of like low quality fashion that you're buying and clothing. I don't know, I think.
And typically, with like the fast fashion, a lot of times a thing that people are drawn to is the money aspect of it. They want to buy things that are cheap. And when you buy secondhand at thrift stores, you are buying things that are less expensive because they've been used before.
Yeah.
So that is a great alternative if you are trying to save money. And I think it would be great if we saw more influencers and things promoting that.
Yes.
Because I see like every once in a while people will say like, oh, on like TikTok or different things, they'll say like, but like a lot of times people will, from lots of fast fashion brands, and Amazon and different things is typically where a lot of clothes are from. So if we saw more of that, like
probably one to go. And they have really nice stuff. Like I've seen like, or like this old shirts, they're like vintage and like nice. And most of it, like people sometimes doesn't want to buy it because they're like, oh, someone else wore it. Well, all that has probably like gone through like check out, like they've been like washed and everything. So I think everyone should start thrifting more, or at least give it an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think with the concept of wanting to be trendy, that makes people stray away from thrifting because you're not getting the exact same thing. So people they see a person wearing this and they want to go just to the store and guarantee they can find it. Thrifting, it takes a little more work.
Yeah.
You have to look through the stuff and you're not always going to find the exact thing that you're looking for. So people have to be willing to think outside the box and put in a little extra effort.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
The good result that we can see from thrifting, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I think so too. And more like at the end, now like also good quality clothes, sometimes they put the price too high.
Yeah.
Not even close to the real price they should have.
Yeah.
So with thrifting, you're not gonna see that problem at all. And you might get a similar quality. Because they're probably thrift stores don't get the worst clothes. They try to use the clothes that they know people are probably gonna want.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be able to give it a second life to them.
Yeah. So going off that, there's kind of different levels of thrifting and different quality that you can find at different thrift stores. So there is some places where you're going to find things that are more affordable and they kind of have all sorts of things, different levels of quality. But then certain thrift stores will only take certain brands. And so that I would say would be a little more fancier form of thrifting. So I guess for the people who are always interested in name brand things, there are certain thrift stores that you can find stuff like
there
that.
There are options out there. You just gotta find them. Yeah. So I think this was a really good talk. We talked about the impact that fast fashion has, the influence that social media has on it, how we lift all this, some statistics that are out there about it. And we also gave some sustainable habits as thrifting. So I would say let's rethink how we shop and make small changes that can lead to a bigger impact. So start by thrifting, buying less, or just making your clothing last longer. So thank you so much, Kendahl, for being here with me and starting this podcast with me. And thank you for the listeners to Sustainability is Sexy. And if you enjoyed this episode, share with a friend and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time. Before I go, I'm gonna finish the podcast by reading a poem by Michael Rosen. This poem was written many years ago before fast fashion became popular. And I thought was a good way to end the podcast, reminding us how people used to have a deeper emotional connection with their clothes and how the attachment impacted how they used them. I've had this shirt that's covered in dirt for years and years and years. It used to be red, but I wore it in bed and it went gray because I wore it all day for years and years and years. The arms fell off in the Monday wash and you can see my vest through the holes in the chest for years and years and years. As my shirt falls apart, I'll keep the bites in a biscuit tin on the mantelpiece for years and years and years. Thank you for listening.